Well, for weeks now, we've been telling you about the financial troubles of the casino operator Star Entertainment. Star's management, led by CEO Steve McCann, have desperately sought to raise money through asset sales and new loans, as we've reported, at interest rates of up to 16%. It's entered into a deal for $53 million to sell its half share of the Brisbane Queen's Wharf property, which cost $3.4 billion to build. Yep, you heard correctly, $53 million for a property that Star's share of development was $1.7 billion. That sale was to its Brisbane partners, the Hong Kong investors, Far East Consortium International and Chow Tai Fook Enterprises. Well, in the middle of all this, an American casino operator, Bally's Corporation, emerged from nowhere and made a takeover offer for 50.1% of all of Star for around $250 million. But who's Bally's? Well, this week I caught up with its president and longtime casino executive, George Papanier, and its CEO, Robeson Reeves, in an exclusive Business Weekend interview.
Sure. So we were informed of Star's issues about a year ago. At the time, we felt conditions presenting themselves weren't ripe enough because the current management had a lot of time to implement any corrective actions. So we believe the opportunity that presents itself today is a lot different, considering the current financial conditions that Star Casinos finds themselves in. And we believe we're well equipped and positioned to improve the financial stability of the company if we can get to a deal. You know, we've spoken to a lot of constituents, but I'll leave that up to our chairman at a later date to provide any specifics if we get further along in this process. I could tell you I visited all the Star casinos, including Sydney, Brisbane, and Gold Coast. They're all very special properties. The physical attributes of each property puts them in a class of their own, top of the market, in my opinion. And competitively, it's obvious that they offer so much more than the surrounding pokies. I was really impressed.
So, Robeson Reeves, if I can go to you now, I mean, obviously you're trying to crunch the numbers on this, but the offer of $250 million, given the value of Star Entertainment historically, which is many billions of dollars, if you can get that across the line, and it is a distressed asset, there's no doubt, it clearly is a potential opportunity.
Yeah, we view it as an opportunity. We don't want to get into the exact deal terms here today, as we'll go through that separately and we'll follow that process along other lines. But yeah, we, as George said, we think that Star Entertainment is a very interesting proposition. We're interested in all of their properties, and we think we can make it work with the right team in place.
So you would be well aware, though, that right now, in order to get cash to simply stay alive, that the Star's management is already doing deals to try and sell its share of half of the Brisbane casino. The potential of the Gold Coast casino could be up for sale. It's selling out its entertainment quarter of its Sydney casino. So there is already transactions underway simply to try and keep it alive. So, Robeson, does that trouble you in terms of the deal that you're offering?
It doesn't trouble us. We'll keep on making progress through each of these steps. We want to keep everything together rather than strip it apart. We think that things tend to operate better if they're one larger organization where you can actually generate benefits for each of the properties one by making one tweak in one place. It just rolls out everywhere else.
So, George, when you do, if you were successful, let's imagine that you were successful, this gets across the line. The one thing that has stopped others from making takeover bids, that they really say otherwise it might be better to deal with the administrators if it goes broke, is the potential fine from the anti-money laundering agency AUSTRAC in Australia. Now, many people are suggesting that could be $400 million or more, which is actually more than what you're even offering for Star Entertainment right now.
Yeah, well, as far as allowing it to enter into administration, we believe that the outcome would be too unpredictable. As Robeson said, we're interested in all three assets, and we'll have to work through the process to understand exactly how we can position the acquisition of all three properties, understanding that probity is a big issue that we would need to overcome.
So just asking you on that, because probity is the big issue to overcome, because speed is of the essence. How long do you imagine it would take you to be able to satisfy Australian gaming authorities that you are the right organisation to be able to manage the Star going forward?
Well, I'll take that one. So we hold 28 privileged licenses across multiple heavily regulated jurisdictions. And like in all the other jurisdictions that we operate in, we have a proactive engagement with the local gaming regulator. Like strong regulatory compliance is normal for us, right? We take it very, very seriously, and we view it as a fundamental tenet to gaming social responsibilities and sustainable gaming enterprise. So we'll undertake all the required probity investigations at an entity and at individual levels, and work with the appropriate regulatory agencies in New South Wales and Queensland. They'll be the experts on the process, but we're ready to proceed at the right time. And we've done this many times, as I said, 28 different jurisdictions and licenses. Like we're very well regulated.
But Robeson, you would appreciate my point that as time moves forward and the Star clearly is gobbling up cash at a massive rate, trying to get that probity at the right time is also pretty critical for this deal.
Absolutely, and we'll move as quickly as we need to move to make sure that this can happen if everything aligns. But we'll move as quickly as possible. We're very good at this. As I said, we're licensed in many places, and that's because we're very good at what we do. We take anti-money laundering, we take all of these things very seriously, and we're regulated in some of the highest regulated jurisdictions like the UK.
So George, on that very point, one of the issues that really in Australia has maybe caused a significant drop-off in the number of people going through Australian casinos is cashless gaming, cashless gambling. So tell me about your own experiences with that in the United States and whether you think that is appropriate and whether you can actually manage that in Australia.
Sure. Well, the technology of cashless gaming is a little premature. In the United States, it's just starting to surface in operations within the United States. Something that we're certainly well abreast of and implementing at a couple of our properties as well. So we don't think that is a deterrent in any sense. It's really what the future is going to be bringing. By way of gaming and physical casinos, so we're not adverse to that, and we think it's the way that the industry is going to continue to evolve.
And George, just to give us a sense of Bally's Corporation, I know the way in which it's grown through acquisition over time and going to Caesars and getting the Bally's name a few years ago. But the big project you've got right now is your Chicago project and casino, which is right now being built, which is not dissimilar to the way in which Star has built its own Brisbane Queen's Wharf casino at a massive cost.
Yeah, well, we're certainly excited about Chicago. We'll be the only casino in the city limits of Chicago, so we have exclusivity in that market, and we just have done a groundbreaking there, and we're putting caissons in the ground now, and we're looking to open by the end of 2026. It's something we're excited about. It will be our new flagship property in the United States, and it will be an integrated resort, and we're excited about getting that up and running.
Yeah, so Robeson, that would be very similar to many of these integrated resorts that the Star represents in Australia. I do know, just looking at gaming revenues, when the Star in Australia was at its peak, its revenues were quite similar to where Bally's Corporation is right now. But obviously it will rise once Chicago is going. So I'm just wondering about the step up in terms of buying the Star. It is obviously, as we know, it's an opportunistic play that you've got here, but it really does give you a significant scale in a different part of the world.
Yeah, it'll be great. We want to be as international as possible. We're very dominant when it comes to the US from our physical properties perspective, but we do have international revenues in other places. For me, adding Star to this mix reminds me of how actually Bally's grew over time. We've been very acquisitive. We've bought many properties. George is a master at that. We buy the properties and he makes them perform better. So adding this extra sort of bow to us would be fantastic. We do want to be a full global player. Just recently, we bought a physical property in the UK, and we're looking at focusing on adding more and more assets across the world. I wanted to add one thing about cashless, because cashless is an important aspect of what we need to make right in the industry and what we need to make right in Australia. because cashless is also very valuable from a margin accretion perspective, because cash handling is expensive. Cashless is much cheaper, but more importantly, it also helps to reduce all the money laundering risks. So the way I look at it is the more you can actually capture about players, the more information you have, the easier it is to actually meet regulations. We don't view regulations as problems. Often operators view regulations as problems. We view regulations and our relationship with the regulators much more as a public-private partnership. So we love regulations. It's necessary to deliver good business. And when I mean good business, I mean I want to make good money. Good money is about making sure the money's come from the right sources. You're following the right anti-money laundering practices. And we do this across the globe today. Also, the money needs to be sustainable and it needs to be responsibly spent by players. Right? We make sure that player protection is at the heart of everything we do. And it might sound like I'm just saying we do the right thing, but this is fantastic business, right? I believe that if we were to get hold of these properties, we'll be able to turn them into great sustainable businesses with great legitimate funds, making sure that players don't blow up and overspend, but they enjoy their experiences with us forever and keep coming back forever. But that requires technology. And that's important to understand. Bally's is unusual. We have physical properties, but we have a ton of technology across all of our interactive business, which we use to power and improve some of our assets. So yeah, you can't use blanket approaches for any of these things. You have to be really smart and make sure that you understand that someone who earns $20,000, they have a certain amount to spend, which is very different to someone who earns 40 or 100,000 or even $1 million. So we make it work for us and allow us to win by combining data, tech, and our properties. And that's how we see things improving for Star if we were to be fortunate enough to get hold of those assets.
So that's an interesting aspect. George, I want to ask you one other part about Australian gaming, and that is that the high roller market has pretty much disappeared. The junket operators have gone as a result of all of the anti-money laundering and anti-corruption work that's been done in Australia. Now, clearly you would have had to have dealt with this during your time in the United States. Is it necessary to have high rollers attracted to these Australian casinos for them to be viable in the future?
No, not at all. You know, the United States went through an evolution similar to this. Once gaming started outside of Las Vegas and into New Jersey at the time, it was heavily reliant on high rollers. But over time, that's dissipated pretty significantly to the point of where the casinos are more regionally oriented outside of Las Vegas. And we view those three markets similar to regional markets in the United States. We believe there's a lot of opportunity, not relying on any of the junket or an international business. Although that will be a component of the business, it just won't be a majority of the business like it was, which it seems to have been early on in Australia.
So, Robeson, one final question for you. A lot of people right now are saying that a lot of the funders or potential financiers for Star Entertainment that are literally providing the rescue funds are doing so because they want to get the New South Wales government to hand over the land on which the Sydney casinos sit, that's the real gold sitting inside that business, the opportunity, if you like, for some of these financiers and funders. What's your own sense of that? The New South Wales government doesn't want to hand over that land. It politically thinks that's poisonous. What's your own sense of that? Should the New South Wales government hand over the land to you as part of this deal?
I don't think I should really get into that. We should see what actually takes place and work with all of the regulatory bodies, all of the governments, and make sure that we do the right thing. We're going to get into all the details on this deal, and we can't predict far enough ahead. We just know that we're very interested in the assets. We want to basically bring good business to Australia and keep on expanding globally. We'll make sure we have the right team, good, solid Australian local team. Want to make sure everyone's in place, but we don't really want to get into the detail on these things. We're still at the beginning.
Robeson Reeves, George Papanier, I appreciate your time in the program today. Great to chat to you.